Hey, welcome to Mr. Berry's 8th grade literature class. This is a lesson on literary archetypes. Make sure that you have your notes with you and you're taking accurate notes because this content will be tested and you'll be asked to look for archetypes in a variety of forms of different texts like film, myths, and of course novels. So we don't waste any more of your time, let's get started. So before we talk about the definition of archetypes and what archetypes are, I want you guys to think about a couple of quotes. The first one is from Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verse 9 from the Bible. It reads, "What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There's nothing new under the sun." Comparatively, rapped by the name of Nas, in his song No Ideas Original states, "There's nothing new under the sun. It's never what you do but how it's done." What do you think these quotes mean? What does it mean when the text states that there's nothing new under the sun? I want you to think about that idea while we look at and analyze different texts for various archetypes. And we'll have a discussion about it at the end of the unit. So first, before we talk about archetypes, we need to have a basis and an understanding of stories and the origin of stories. So we know the very first stories that we know of are ancient myths, and I'm sure a lot of you have studied ancient mythology in some of your history classrooms. You probably studied ancient Roman and Greek texts, which is great. So we know that every culture around the world, every country, every group of people have developed their own stories to help their people understand the world around them. They also develop these stories to help them understand human behavior, why people do the things that they do, and to try to answer life's big questions like why are we here, why was the universe created, how was it created, when was it created, and what's our purpose on this earth. So like we said, every country and every group of people around the world have produced their own myths and stories. And researchers have been able to collect and compare all of these myths and legends and religious texts from all these cultures and compare them and analyze them. So two of the main researchers are Carl Jung.
Now, for the purpose of our notes, take down this definition of a literary archetype. So in literature, archetypes are patterns that reoccur in literature again and again and again. They're typically characters, symbols, or situations, and they usually reflect a part of what it means to be a human being. So, as we mentioned, there are three types of archetypes, and the one that we're going to be looking at today is the character archetype. Alright, so make sure you have your notes handy so you can take notes because you will be using them in an upcoming assignment. So before you start, what I want you to do is just think about for a second, what types of characters do you think exist out there? So think about TV shows, movies, novels, comic books, etc., all that good stuff. Think about the types of characters that you've seen shown in that type of media and jot a few of them down. So here we go with the character archetype. So the first two are very obvious. Heroes and villains. And now that you see them, I'm sure you're probably thinking, how could I have forgotten that? So first, hero. So when we think of heroes, they don't necessarily need to be superheroes. They can be average human beings that usually have some type of larger than life personality that makes them special in some type of way. So we do have all the superheroes that are out there with all the Marvel and DC movies, but there are also other heroes such as Moana or Emmett from the Lego movie, and a whole slew of other main characters or protagonists. Typically the hero is the audience's personal tour guide on the adventure, and the audience needs to relate to this character because they'll experience the story through the character's eyes. Usually the hero is going to leave the world that they're familiar with and they're going to go on to a new world experiencing new things, and they're going to grow as a character. So, during these journeys, the hero usually demonstrates qualities or abilities that are valued by our culture. So we can see what our culture, or whatever culture the hero stems from, what that culture values by looking at what traits that hero has. The next is the villain. Obviously, the villain is the antagonist, and they oppose the protagonist, or the main character. Sometimes the villains are called shadows, and they exist to create a threat or a conflict and give the hero something to struggle against. Like many of the other archetypes, shadows or villains don't have to be characters specifically. They can be evil entities, or spirits, or bad omens, or bad vibes. Villains, they're especially effective if they are opposite to the hero in some way. So if they mirror the hero in some type of way. It shows the audience the twisted person the hero could have become if they head down the wrong path, and it kind of highlights the hero's internal struggle. Also, these characters typically are outcasts, and they don't really fit into normal society. One way that the villain usually is defeated is that they fall on their own sword, and what that means is they're foiled by their own plan. So something that they didn't think of in their planning didn't work the way that they thought, and it led to their eventual downfall. Okay, so two more character archetypes. We have the damsel, or the dude in distress. So these are usually vulnerable characters that have to be rescued by the hero. They're often trapped in a remote location, and they may be used as a trap by an evil figure. So we know that the damsel, or the dude in distress, doesn't always have to be a female character. They can be male characters, which is nice to see in modern television, film, or novels. We have Finn from The Force Awakens getting himself into trouble, and he has to be rescued by Rey, a female hero. Next type of character archetype is the helper. So these can come in a variety of forms: sage, wise woman, earth mother, and these characters are usually there to assist or guide the protagonist. And they're not typically physically strong. Usually they're old, but they have wisdom or knowledge that's needed to help the main hero complete their quest. Alright, so two more. We have the companion, or the sidekick, and the creature of nightmare. The sidekick, we've seen a ton of them before. Usually the hero in the story will have to face some great challenges, and sometimes it's too great for one person to face alone, and they'll need someone to distract the guards, or hack into the mainframe, or carry their gear. And the story could get a little dull without any other characters for the main character to interact with, so that's why they have a companion. Usually the companion meets the hero early on in the journey. They're a figure of support and trust, offering help when needed, and sometimes they get themselves into trouble and cause more problems for the hero, but it just causes some more conflict and makes things a little more interesting for the viewers. The next type of character is the creature of nightmare. This creature is not the main villain. It is some type of monster, either real or abstract, and it's summoned from the deepest, darkest parts of the human mind. And sometimes it could be a mental flaw in the main character, or another character that's creating this creature of nightmare. And usually this creature of nightmare threatens the lives of the hero or the heroine. Sometimes they inflict bodily harm, sometimes they cause mental anguish, but they are characters like zombies or the Demogorgon, mysterious, dark creatures that try to thwart the main hero on their journey. The next two are the friendly beasts and the outcasts. The friendly beast is usually an animal, or half creature, half human. and they are here to help the hero out. Basically, these heroes reflect that the hero is supported by nature, that nature is on the side of the hero. The outcast is a figure that's banished from community for some crime or supposed crime that they committed. They might not have actually done anything, but people think that they did. And so they get kicked out of their home and they are left to wander for the rest of their days. And they will usually meet up with the hero at some point in the journey to offer some type of support. Two more are the Hidden Heart of Gold and the Star-Crossed Lovers. Hidden Heart of Gold is a villainous character that starts out by doing evil deeds, but by the end of the story they change and they've been saved by the hero's nobility or good heart. Usually they're misunderstood and they give in to anger or jealousy. So you have the Grinch. Obviously at the beginning he hates Christmas, doesn't want to have anything to do with it, and actually wants to stop people from enjoying celebrating Christmas, but by the end of the movie his heart grows 3 times bigger. The next example would be the Star-Crossed Lovers. They're usually characterized by great beauty, and it's a great relationship between the protagonist and the antagonist, and a lot of times these lovers are not meant to be in some way, so something's stopping them from being together. And the final one is the Christ figure. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the biblical character Jesus Christ. Well, he's popular in more than just religious texts. We see a lot of modern and mythical texts and stories using the Christ image and figure for a number of reasons in a number of different ways. So Christ figure usually is divine or has godlike qualities or powers. They display kindness and forgiveness. They're guided by a spirit of that character's father. The character's own death and resurrection usually takes place. They sacrifice themselves for the greater good. They usually heal and help others, and they fight for justice and perform miracles. So as you can see in the images, even the pose of the Christ figure is shown and copied and reoccurred in a variety of different films. You can see Neo in The Matrix, Katniss Everdeen in the Jesus pose from the Hunger Games, and the most recent Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man himself is in the Christ pose, which symbolizes the fact that they are sacrificing themselves for something greater. All right, there's also many, many, many more, but those are a good introduction to the character archetypes. All right, so make sure you have taken all those notes. Check out what assignment is coming up next, and finish those assignments, and you can jump on to the next section.